Hey everybody! So for today's movie review, I'm going to talk about the film Critters. It is a film from the 1980s. It's a creature feature. It's kind of like Gremlins, but it's a little bit different approach on that. This is definitely more of like an outer space-ish, sci-fi-ish kind of approach to the creature feature. So yeah, like I said, today's film is called Critters, and that's what the critters look like. It's probably the best on that cover you can see of one of them. So that's what the critters look like. They come in huge batches like that. In this film, you guys, though, basically there's this clan of bounty hunters in outer space, and in their UFO, they have these little small creatures that they like to call crits. And what happens is one day while they're out in space, the critters somehow get loose in their UFO, and basically they head out into Earth. And so the bounty hunters have to get them back since they're very aggressive creatures. They can harm people if they, try to pet them or try to pick them up. So they go down to Earth since that's where the critters were going, and they try to get them back in their ships before the critters do much more harm than good. And basically, most of the film centers around this small town that where the critters land. It's kind of like this. I don't want to say Kansas or anything like that, but it's definitely very much a deserted. Definitely a town you would definitely drive by on like a long road trip. Not really like it has a lot of tour attractions or anything. It's one of those type of towns where it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. You don't quite know where it is. Very much like in the land of farmers and rednecks and things of that nature. Um, but basically, there's a family that basically gets these critters more than anybody else within the town, and they try to get rid of them. They think they're just kind of these pests that live out in the environment somewhere that somehow are getting into their homes somehow. And basically, throughout the rest of the movie, the critters get bigger and bigger. The swarms get bigger and bigger. The batches do, and the size of the creatures get bigger. So basically, throughout the rest of the film, this family has to try to find a way to get rid of these critters, while these bounty hunters from this UFO from space are getting to Earth and trying to help out the best they can if they even can get there in time. And so, most of the film I would say centered around this little boy who um, really goes from the kind of the zero to hero. He's one of those kind of characters. Like he really was kind of worthless at the beginning, but he becomes this huge hero at the end by getting rid of these critters since his family's in pain and things like that. So basically, it's your typical creature feature at that point. They just got to get rid of the critters, and if the bounty hunters get there in time, they can take them back up into space pretty much. So critters, you guys, it's a pretty I'll be honest with you. It's a pretty generic creature feature. It's definitely not like unique or original, or it's definitely not as creative as Gremlins was back when Joe Dante and Chris Columbus took that on. But it's not a bad movie at all. I mean, it's definitely, like I said, it's just not Gremlins. It's just not as unique as that was. But I can see why people like it. I can see why maybe some people view it as like a cult classic. But for the most part, it's okay. It's nothing great, but it's nothing horrible. I want to get to the positives and negatives here, though, for you. Um, for the positives, the bounty hunters in the movie, I really like the bounty hunters because what they do with them in the movie is because they're going into Earth and they want to make sure that people are like, oh wow, look at those aliens there over there. Because the critters are already there and they don't want to freak people out even more with their alien-like look. What they do is they look up on these monitors of things that are televised and things that because they have TV monitors in the ship, things that people are used to seeing out in public. So what they do is one of them copies a look of a band member from a music video, kind of like the rock star singer kind of a person. And the other one, whenever he touches or has a firm grip on somebody, whenever he's walking around on Earth, he starts to look and sound like that person as well. So I kind of like that aspect of the bounty hunters where one of them has their look and their voice based off of a famous music video person from what they're researched from about Earth before going into Earth, and then one of them basically turns into anybody that he has a firm grip on Earth. So people are like, oh hey sheriff, or hey Bob, or hey Tim, or whoever he gets a firm grip on while he's on Earth. So I like those aspects of the bounty hunters. In some way, also the bounty hunters are almost the more interesting character of the movie in a way too. Um, yeah, they were the much more interesting characters throughout the movie. And then another positive I have about the film is I kind of like the creature effects in the movie. What they do is whenever somebody's looking outside and one of the critters jumps up at them, you'll see like the big bright red eyes. And so basically, imagine these eyes if you can see that at all on here. So imagine these like red eyes, and they're very very bright on the screen. They're very very bright when these like when Dee Wallace or any of the cast members are looking outside, and you see the critters kind of scurrying up to them or anything. I kind of like the creature effects that they added to them, kind of the neon light look of their eyes and teeth and mouth and things of that nature. And also another positive is that this film is actually pretty entertaining. I never felt bored throughout the movie, and that's definitely one of the better things to say about it. Is I never really felt bored. I mean, I was always entertained by what was going on. I was always intrigued about what was going to happen next. So as far as keeping it entertaining, I think the director did his or her job pretty well when it came to that. On a side note, I used to have a pet named Chewy. I had a dog named Chewy. In this film, they also have a pet named Chewy, so I thought that was kind of cool. They have a cat named Chewy in this one, but still, just the fact that they have a pet named Chewy and it's a family pet, I could really connect with that throughout the movie. So, in a way, I felt like I was watching my own family whenever they were talking about Chewy. So, just kind of a little side note, I really enjoyed that they did that, though, just because their pet is the same name as the pet I used to have. So, I thought that was kind of cool. I also like the small town setting in this movie. I like when creature features and like sci-fi movies and things from space come down from Earth. I like when they happen in a small town setting. Usually when it happens in like a big city or a place where a lot of people live or things of that nature. It either feels too crowded or kind of like what happened with Predator 2 where there's just so many things you could do in that environment that there's just so many good options available and only a few of them get picked. That's usually one problem. It happens when you have a big sci-fi film that takes place in like a major city with a lot of people in it. So I kind of like how they went with a small town setting where they could really focus on just a small group of people, and we can kind of connect to it in a way because there was a lot of like neighborhood areas and kind of like this farm life area because I live in Wisconsin, so I know a lot about like just road and road and road, and then you pass a farm every once in a while, and then just road and road and road and road and just more road. And so I just like that small town setting that they accomplished in this movie. I thought that was very very good on the script and the setting choices as far it was just a good setting choice for the movie, I thought. I liked how the son character in the movie kind of went from a zero to hero type of role. At the beginning, he's lighting fireworks, getting into trouble, and he's not a good kid at the beginning. And I like how at the end he really just kind of really wants to do something good for his family for once. So he's able to take on these creatures and fight for his family because the father's injured, the mother's freaking out, the daughter who's his sister is she doesn't want to fight off the creatures either. And so I kind of like how that he really took charge of the situation and really became a much different character by the end of the movie. So I liked that part of the movie as well. I also like the fun '80s vibe where it's a creature feature. It takes place in a small town, like what happened with E.T. and Goonies and things of that nature. So I kind of like that fun, campy. The special effects are outdated kind of a feeling. Fun '80s vibe of the movie. I thought that was also a lot of fun to watch. For the negatives of this movie, I think overall the critters or the crits or whatever you want to call them for the movie, I thought they were a pretty forgettable antagonist. I mean, it's basically just your typical creature feature kind of villain where they bite, they have claws, they get bigger over time, or something changes over time throughout the movie, and they grow in batches like the Gremlins did, and so just overall pretty forgettable antagonist. There's nothing really about the critters that really stood out to me at all. Really, probably the closest thing unique that critters can do is they can roll up into a ball and they can just keep on rolling and rolling and rolling until they finally get the person they're trying to bite and things of that nature. But overall, the critters themselves are pretty forgettable, I thought. Also, one major complaint I had about the movie is there was a lot of bad and dark lighting in the movie. Whoever did the lighting of this movie did a horrible job. Whenever the scene took place in the dark or if it took place at nighttime, you could barely see what's going on. You can probably see maybe whatever the moonlight striking in that shot or whatever, but it's very hard to see anything that takes place in the dark in that movie. And I really hated the choice that the electricity went out at one point in the movie in this town because then that basically guaranteed throughout the rest of the movie that anything that took place at night or anything that happened in the dark you could probably not see in the movie. So I really didn't like that at all. There was also some occasional bad editing, specifically on a scene where the son and the daughter are fighting. And you can definitely tell they really quickly put that together, and it just doesn't seem right with the editing. You can tell the audio is a little off. And there's another scene, basically any scene that involves the son and the daughter fighting, because there's another scene at the beginning too where I think the son is kicking the daughter because he doesn't like what she's talking about or something, and just very, very badly put together. So whoever did those scenes did a horrible job, also. But like the scenes with the critters and the things with like the town trying to help out with getting rid of the critters, those kind of things are fine. But specifically on the scenes with the son and the daughter fighting, whoever did the editing on that did a horrible job. Also, not to mention the acting wasn't very good, so that didn't really help. On top of the fact that it was bad editing either. Um, Another negative I have about the movie is it's very unoriginal. This is definitely like the most cliche, most generic, most like unoriginal, like most unbrilliant idea you could ever do for a creature feature, just because like it's so many other movies have done this already, and so a very unoriginal idea. So if you're looking for something original, don't go to Critters. It's definitely not a very original piece. Um, I also did not like that the main family of the movie was the main focus of the movie because they were very boring to watch. I definitely wanted another family that the film could have focused on instead. Just a very bad redneck farmer type family that I really didn't care about at all, and just I really would have preferred a much. I would have preferred characters I could have rooted for throughout the movie, and unfortunately, Critters doesn't do that. Um, and the last negative I have is the film doesn't stand out, and I think every creature feature should try to stand out. It should try to be original. It should try to be creative. Try to do something that other creature features don't do, and Critters just never really tries to do that. It just basically plays by the numbers. It doesn't try to do anything new or unique. It doesn't try to beat Gremlins. It doesn't try to be more creative or do a new approach or anything of that nature. It's just very, very generic, and I really wish that before they took on the movie, they would have really thought to themselves, how is Critters going to stand out? What's going to make Critters a really good movie that people are going to want to come back to several years from now, not just, for the next few weeks while it's showing in theaters, but what's something that Critters can do that can be unique and people will actually want to sit down and watch this movie when they're 20, when they're 30, when they're 40, when they're 50. And to me, Critters just doesn't have that type of inspiration and pizzazz that other creature features like Gremlins had. And before they took on the movie, I wish they would have thought that through and really could have decided what Critters is truly all about. But overall, guys, I give Critters a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's an okay film. Like I said, it's entertaining. The creature feature effects are okay. The bounty hunters, I liked how they took them on for the. That was my mouse. I like how they took those characters on for the movie. But like I said, just very boring family that they focused on. Bad lighting, bad editing. A lot of cliches that I really didn't care for. Very unoriginal. It doesn't stand out. Um, so I would, if you can rent this film, if you can borrow this film, I think that'd be the best way to watch Critters. I definitely wouldn't buy it. It's definitely not worth owning. So I would, rent it, borrow it from a friend that possibly owns it and likes creature features. But I wouldn't go out and buy it. Don't go out of your way to see it. It's okay. It's just not a great movie.